Hey, good morning everyone. So we're Mark and Ali, and today we're going to be talking about our creative journeys from school to now. So we'll talk a little bit about kind of how we got to the place where we are. So firstly, if you don't know us, we're Mark and Ali. We're Studio Mali together, and we make homeware and jewellery inspired by travel from sustainable materials. And today we're going to kind of explain what our kind of backgrounds were from when we were like kids and stuff, and what inspired us to kind of start our business and get where we are. So we'll kind of start with school and before that. So I guess when I was a kid, I was always like into creative subjects. I was quite like I was brought up in quite like a free household. My parents would like walk around naked and stuff when I was young. It was a little bit hippie-ish, and a lot of my family were kind of both granddads were into photography, and they were my other granddad made his own furniture. So I was always quite inspired by those people in my life, and I guess that kind of came through in school. I ended up taking things like photography and fine art. I didn't actually get to do anything in the workshop. We didn't get to use that at school at all. So
Did they not have it?
they had it, but for whatever reason, whatever the sets I was in, whatever, I didn't get to do anything practical. So I never really had any experiences making things in a workshop, which is kind of weird. 'Cause that's what I do now.
Yeah.
But art was like my top subject. I got an A star in it, and it didn't really feel like work. It didn't really feel like I just felt like it was very natural. I guess it was similar for you.
Yeah,
You
I
worked
mean,
hard, didn't you?
Yeah, and I was always a creative person. I was kind of like the arty one. We had fine art at my school, which I really enjoyed. Like, I think I was doing lots of like fine work with oil pastels and pencils and things like that, quite accurate and photorealist work. And I really enjoyed that, but I did want to do textiles as well. But because our school didn't have that many people doing it, I couldn't actually run the course. So I was really eager to get to college so I could just start doing textiles and making clothes and things like that. And my mum was a creative person, and she was always into sewing and stuff, and she always wanted to do that as a career, but I don't think she could, because in her generation it wasn't like seen as a sort of a career. It was more like a hobby, really. So yeah, so I did want to do that, and I was just like really eager to get to college. And at that point my parents split up as well, so I think I really like threw myself into my work, and I was always like revising loads in my bedroom, and my mum would have to come in and basically stop me revising because I was just like knuckling down. And I think at one point I even fell asleep like in my textbook on my bed just because I was revising so much. It was ridiculous.
Obsessed.
Yeah, I was obsessed.
Did you think like the parents splitting up, did that come through in your work in any way? Was it like in your final piece or anything?
I don't know that I really translated it well into that, but I think there was probably some like teenage anger in there somewhere, you know. Like, I think I was a bit of a fiery teenager, as I'm sure my family will be able to tell you. A bit difficult.
Yeah.
What about you? Your parents
thinking about it now, because I kind of grew up with my dad. It was just me and my dad at home, and quite like a big house, and dad was at work till late most nights. So I spent quite a lot of time at home, and I think that's where that kind of time, although obviously it would have been nicer to spend it with family, that kind of like nurtured my creativity. So I was into music, so I'd put music on that I loved, and I'd spend my whole evening just working on my textbooks, on my art books and stuff. So I'd be like
really
painting.
in the zone.
Yeah, I had all the loads of. I was really lucky. I had loads of art materials at home, so I could just experiment with different things. And then my final piece was kind of like a cubist pencil drawing, but I guess it was quite sad and quite somber in some ways. So maybe that, because my parents split up as well. Maybe that kind of came through
in your work.
Yeah, and I think obviously you're a teenager. You naturally go to dark places, and you're
trying to figure things
out, and you don't always know the right thing. You're trying to be an adult, but you're not really ready. So I think all of those things are kind of coming through, probably in our lives and certainly in our art.
Yeah.
And you just kind of want to get on with your life, don't you? And we were kind of just like, you feel like you're like stuck where you are a little bit. So it goes without saying really that as soon as I could go to foundation, I pretty much picked the furthest place I could get to while still living at home, and I commuted along the south coast from close to Portsmouth all the way to Brighton.
That's a cool place to do your foundation,
which was amazing. That's where I kind of realised that like what kind of creative lifestyle could bring, and what kind of other, you know, there's only so many kind of creative people at school that went on to go and follow that as their dream, and actually When you get to art school, everyone is super into their discipline. So you get people that really want to be textiles designers. You want people that want to make clothes. You want people that want to do web design. And that when you put all those people together in one place, it's really, really inspiring. And it's quite hard to describe what that's like unless you've kind of been there. But like everyone is just fully engaged in what they're doing, and creative people are just like they're fun people. They've got crazy ideas, and it's nice to.
And the idea of foundation as well is that you could try out lots of different subjects. So I think I got to try out like 6 different things, like photography, graphics, and I think I already knew that I wanted to go into like fashion and textiles, but it was quite fun like trying them all out, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. What were you like kind of recommended to go into textile? We had like a meeting at the end of like the term where they kind of said like what they kind of said what they thought we should do. They didn't actually ask us. They kind of said, we think you'd be suited to this, and then you kind of decided. I
don't know that we had that at my college, but we did. Basically, they had like this pact with a neighbouring college, which was the art institution in Farnham and the Institution of Art and Design. And they had a pact that basically we could just get in unconditionally. So they were just pushing everyone to go there. They didn't push anyone to go anywhere else. So I just sort of was like...
same in Brighton. Everyone, like half the class went to Nottingham because the Nottingham tutors came down and just kind of cherry picked.
Yeah,
but there were some amazing people that went there. So it was obviously, if you want to... And it's a red brick uni, so it was a good link if you wanted that.
Yeah.
But obviously, we didn't want to go... There's only one place, really, for creative roles, isn't there?
What, London?
London.
Yeah. yeah. So, I mean, I was still living at home when I was doing my foundation and just commuting to like a neighbouring town. It was just me and my friend. And basically, like, all of our other friends had just left for uni. So I think by the time foundation came to the end, we were like really keen to move on and get to uni and go somewhere else now because we've been at home for such a long time. And
yeah, definitely. Although for you only went to the next county along though, didn't you? You went from Hampshire to Surrey.
Yeah, Hampshire to Surrey. We both went to Kingston, and that's actually where we met. But I just remember going to my interview in Kingston, and it just had such a vibe about it. It was so exciting, and it's the first place that I felt like all of these people are quite similar to me, like we're all creatives, and it just had a buzz about it.
It was crazy. I remember literally the first time we got into the building, the lift opened and someone was dragging someone out of the lift for an art piece, just dragging them along the floor, and I was like, obviously I've never seen anything like that. I was just totally different, like why are they doing that? Like, you knew that, like, you'd gone to a place that's totally different than anywhere you'd been before.
Yeah, it was amazing, and it was such a shabby uni as well. Like, it was pretty disgusting. I remember walking through one of the corridors, and there was a mosquito infestation because it was backed onto this like really minging river or stream.
Yeah.
And it was wild scabby, and I remember my mum thinking like, "This is pretty horrible."
Yeah.
And then I came out, I was like, "This is the uni for me. I really want to go here. This is so exciting."
Yeah,
like, things are happening.
It was definitely like, well, you can't really say it's edgy because it was in the suburbs of like Greater London.
It felt a bit edgy, like from where we'd grown up from, and then going to uni. It did for me. I know you're at Brighton, but for me, it was.
From Brighton, it felt a little bit less edgy. It felt a bit safer, but the uni itself just seemed to have everything, and it was a small. It wasn't too big.
No.
I think like you can go to certain unis and you feel like you might get lost in it. But like Kingston was really small and compact, and actually by the end of the 3 years, like everyone in that year pretty much knew each other. So you had new people across all the different disciplines.
And you did fine art there, and I did fashion design.
Yeah. It was only really in the last year that I started to kind of get into the workshop. I started to work with metal, weirdly. I didn't work with wood. So I was kind of really into my arc and my MIG welding, and I was kind of making light sculptures. But actually getting into the workshops was difficult because there's a lot of pressure there, and actually coming towards my final pieces at the end, I've made a decision to kind of not use the workshop purely so I can kind of get more done in my studio rather than kind of in the workshop. So at that point, I really had no interest in working with wood particularly. So it's still where we got to now really doesn't relate to university that well at all for me.
No,
certainly not for you.
You were doing like kinetic sculptures and stuff as part of your art pieces, weren't you?
Yeah, I was doing kind of mixed media kinetic sculptures. I was trying to translate kind of quite hypnotic video art into sculptures. So rather than I was finding like video art that was quite mesmerising. Well, I found it mesmerising. A lot of people got quite bored in it. I was like, what if I tried to turn that into kind of objects that people related to, that create the same kind of environments? So nothing to do with what we do now.
No,
Really,
no.
it's completely different. But I guess it's the
Yeah.
same for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I always thought I wanted to go into fashion design and probably like high-end fashion design because when you're building up your final collection and stuff, you just want to be doing like bespoke stuff, like the most creative stuff. But actually, the reality is that if you do find a job, you're probably not going to get paid for it in the higher end fashion industry unless you're like really good or you're lucky or something. Um, so I started working at a supplier to High Street, and I got my first job out of uni within 8 months. At a company like designing for people like Primark and C&A, so sort of fast fashion. And that was really, really amazing. Like, I had such a good time in the first few years, and it was really fun, and I got lots of responsibility. It was just, yeah, it was a great first job, really, and I stayed there for a really long time, and I loved all the people I worked with, and it was a good job. Kind of got to, and at that same time as well, me and my friend Fee, we sort of set up a bit of our own business on the side, like making bespoke clothes, which was just more of a hobby really, and we did it for about a year and a half, and we had a studio, but we were probably staying up till like 3 a.m. a lot of nights, and then getting pieces made, and then I'd be going to work at 7, so I was going in pretty tired, and they were quite... They were alright with
loved
that.
all that.
I loved it. It was really
Ali
fun.
likes keeping herself busy. She's not one for like sitting around. So I can imagine you just...
And I was doing a
Great.
bit of freelance hand finishing at like the higher end fashion companies as well, because I love hand sewing. So that was kind of really where I thought I was going to be in the future, working in the fashion industry.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was just starting to... It was niggling a bit at me about the fast fashion kind of wasteful side of it, and kind of doesn't really suit my morals very much. I mean, I don't really... I used to buy lots of clothes like cheap, but I hadn't done for quite a long time, and it's just getting to a point where I felt like we needed to make a change in our lives. And I mean, yeah, what were you doing for work? Like you come out of uni and you got your job.
Yeah. So I wasn't that interested in kind of doing anything commercial at that point. I wasn't interested in money. I was, an art student, socialist, and I just kind of wanted to have a nice life and be creative, and that's kind of what I did actually for 3 years. So I started work as a technician in a technical college in North London. Really just thinking like this is kind of something to do for a few years while I work out what I'm going to do next. But I ended up getting training on pretty much everything in the workshop and kind of maintaining them and things. And from there I was able to start experimenting making furniture. So I started making things like mirrors and chairs and tables. During my time there, which I loved, and then it got to like some holidays, and you'd have like 6 weeks where I was in, where I'd just be like making every day,
Loads of stuff.
and I think I just loved that hands-on tactility of building an object from scratch. That in fine art is always very conceptual, so you had to do a lot of wider reading before really ever made any art. And at the time I loved it, but as soon as I realised that you could do that same process but making something and build it in front of you, I find that a lot more engaging, and that's kind of where, and I realised perhaps art was not for me in the long run, and I wanted to move across to design and making objects and making things perhaps a bit more functional than art, because obviously art can be a bit indulgent. In some ways it's hard because you're just, the only brief is for yourself, whereas for design the brief is for the people using it, and perhaps in some ways that's more challenging. I enjoyed that challenge. So spent quite a few years as a technician.
And then you went to, and then they trained you up as a teacher, basically, didn't they?
Yeah, so basically, because I'd been in school for a while, they asked me if I wanted to kind of become a teacher and transfer. So I did, and it was cool. It was the first few years were really, really tough, as you can imagine. You just, if you read about teaching, it's like the first few years were incredibly hard because you have to learn so many skills and kind of learn to deal with students, and there's so many different needs in schools. But after a few years, again, that also became something that you were naturally better at and more relaxed at doing. So kind of had a bit of free time. Well, I think that in that time we were kind of in our kind of late 20s, we were kind of enjoying ourselves quite a lot, but even that was starting to die down. I think we were realising that we'd both kind of had careers that we'd done for a while, and like, well, what might we do next?
And also like our London life was really creative for us. I mean, we moved up with an amazing group of friends. At one point I think there was like 40-50 people who'd all moved up together within the like a few roads away. So when we got together, it was amazing, wasn't it? It was like a really inspiring place.
So lucky.
Yeah, so fortunate. And I think like after a while of like doing the same job for us, like for quite a few years, we decided we would go away. We went to Patagonia, didn't we? And we just went on this epic journey. Decided to get married. You proposed there, and then after that, we were just like we sort of knew that we wanted to make a really big change in our life, and perhaps we weren't using our creativity to the fullest at this point. I mean, obviously you are as a teacher, and
my job is quite creative.
Yeah.
But it's also quite similar, quite repetitive.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of things you have to keep generating.
Yeah, I think I'd been in my job for 8.5 years, and we just were like, look, instead of going on a really short honeymoon to somewhere not too far away, why don't we just quit and then go on like a year's travelling? And that is what we did. And
Yeah,
so
that in itself isn't necessarily us being more creative, but I guess...
No, we knew that we needed to make a change.
I guess we knew doing that there was going to be a change coming, and then whilst we were away, I think especially in China, I remember just seeing the Chinese are so prolific at inventing things and making their own businesses and working really hard at them. We got a lot of ideas from kind of people in other countries like that kind of just really do unique things, and we're like, there's definitely gaps in the market at home where for people to kind of innovate a little bit more.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying that what we do is super innovative, but
just to be creative. I think it's that idea of just making something and putting it out there and seeing if people want it, and not being afraid to do it.
Yeah. Maybe seeing those people do it gave us the confidence to do it.
Yeah.
So we kind of came back with quite a grand plan of buying a laser cutter, which was a pretty hefty investment with all our spare cash, and then kind of seeing what we could do from that. And I mean, luckily I had experience with laser cutters from school, so I was really confident we could do something. But I guess for Ali had never seen one before. So.
I'd never seen one. I've never worked with wood before. All I knew was how to design clothes. But I had seen you do make your pieces before, like your mirrors and things, and I thought that process can definitely translate to jewellery. So just need to start playing around really and experimenting again, which was really fun. Yeah,
it's great. And now a couple of years into the business, in some ways we have less time to be creative, funnily enough, because there's so many other bits of the business, things like live videos that do take up time, and I think we're now trying to rebalance it again to kind of get back
into the design.
Make sure we're allotting time to actually make things, because that's kind of why I started doing this.
Yeah.
And definitely fall off the wagon a little bit at times, but
it's been an amazing journey. I didn't think I was ever going to be here making things out of wood, to be honest.
No. Well, and when I left uni, I didn't know how to do these things either. And I guess that's one of the principles in life, isn't it? You can always learn and retrain in things. I mean, some people
not be scared to try other things out that you might want to do. It's like it is a big leap having to leave a job, but maybe it's worth it. Maybe you can find a part-time job that supports you doing your own thing for like 1 or 2 days a week, and just start out somewhere and see what happens. Yeah,
I mean, there's loads of like college courses where you can train up on specialisms. I mean,
to be honest, I don't think people even need to do that. I think you just need to start like doing something that you want to do.
But I think if you haven't got a creative network, I think it's harder. So I think like if you're not surrounded by people that also make things, perhaps I think something like a college course is good, because you connect with those other people that want to make changes. I guess with us, we've had friends that would start as businesses, some designing kitchens, some to do with flowers and photography and other areas, and I guess like we could see our friends kind of doing it, and we found that quite inspiring as well. We're like, we can have a go.
Definitely.
But
so that's our journey. That's how we got here.
That's where we are now in 19 minutes. So hopefully you learn a little bit more about our creative backgrounds there. And always remember, if you want to see any of our products that we're talking about, you can go to www.studio-mali.com, and anything you order there is free shipping, and we plant 1 tree for every product bought. So that means we're trying to kind of help the environment in any way we can, offsetting our laser cutter where possible.
Yeah, it's free shipping to the UK, and we also do some worldwide shipping.
Yeah.
Cool,
guys.
Cool. Thanks. Have a good
nice day,
day.
everyone.
See you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.